sees it going up, and she took the lead to invest in her business. She said, well, you're an entrepreneur. See, security is the ability to produce. So most people's income is up and down. So my favorite subject is talking about money. So and you know, success and entrepreneurship. You know, so those are all my favorite topics.
Awesome. Well, hopefully, you know, we add some value to our audience today. And to the audience, guys, like, share, subscribe. Make sure you guys hit the little notification bell if you're on YouTube to make sure that we can fight internet censorship, and make sure you guys get updated on whenever we drop new content. Also, if you guys love what we're doing, go ahead and donate at our Patreon at Awesome Intangibles. That's OSOM Intangibles. You can donate whatever you want. That'll kind of keep this channel going. But yeah, definitely, Curtis, wanted to get into some questions to you, and just kind of, you know, get an idea of, you know, what you think about entrepreneurship. And well, I guess that's my first question. So what did get you into, you know, starting your own business and becoming an entrepreneur? Like, what aha moment was it for you that made you go, okay, this is what I'm going to do as far as my career path?
So I'm an oddball because I never got that go get a good job talk. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm a kind of a third generation entrepreneur or business owner. I heard from the time I was 7 or 8, you never make any money, work for somebody else. My family, I'm from Philly. And so my family owned a supermarket. My grandfather had a sewing factory and stores, you know, before that. And my dad, the longest he's ever worked for somebody is 6 months. And so he said, you know, look, you never. Well, I got into financial services at 20, but I thought, yeah, I went to, well, I was transferring out in finishing at Winston-Salem State. And, you know, I realized the NBA wasn't looking for 5'11" shooting guards with a mediocre handle. Okay, so here I am barely on the team at this Division II school. I actually got my insurance license, and a couple years later, my investment license with this business. But I always wanted to be in business. I majored in business. I thought you majored in business to go into business. It never even occurred to me to get a job. It wasn't until I started to, you know, stretch my entrepreneur. But I always had little hustles. I was always selling stuff, and I'm not even extroverted, but I've never been afraid of money. Like I knew you had to do stuff, sell stuff. And, you know, like my dad, I've heard, I mean, you know, when I wanted to go full time in this business, I was like, you know, like, listen, I want to go full time because I had jobs, but as long as I ever had to work for somebody else was like 13 months. Right. And I would always figure out, you know, I always viewed a job as a temporary inconvenience until I could get my thing going, right? You know, because I wasn't any good. So I had to learn. Most of my journey was personal development. You know, I was not unconfident, you know, being a ball player, but I was not outgoing. I wasn't the walk up to you, hey, how you doing? You know, I'm an introvert by nature. So I had a lot of my journey was learning sales, learning personal development, learning communication skills, Tony Robbins, NLP, all that stuff. And, you know, so through my 20s, I was into all that stuff. And so I teach people your number one investment is in yourself, but that's kind of because you must, even if you're not an entrepreneur, let me give you all a little bit of an out. You need to be an entrepreneurial thinker, right? Because like people think, well, I don't know if I want to be in business. Guys, let me tell you something. That is not optional, okay? See, because you can get fired for one of two reasons. Any reason or no reason at all. It's like, in my mind, that's risky, okay? And that's the security is the ability to produce. So I kind of understood that I always knew that, you know, I wanted to get to a position where once I felt I could, you know, market and generate people I could talk to. And then, you know, if I always like to have a backup. So like if I couldn't be in financial services, I know I could still make 6 figures if I just wanted to do like marketing consulting, right? So I know enough about both of those. So, you know, you always want to get, in our system, we call it being a cash flow nair. And the goal is to be to get to what we call the FU position. You want to be in a position of FU, right? So you can do what you want to do and be able to live life on your terms and have passive income greater than expenses. But the reason I say it's not optional, and a lot of times our people don't get this, is that our tax code is designed for landowners and business owners, right? And so it's hard to win a game you don't know the rules. And so you have to understand the rules of, dare I say it, capitalism, okay, which is it's not a political thing. It's just a economic system where the means of production are in the hands of the people, okay? And you control the capital, where there's other economic systems, socialism, communism, where it believes that the means of production belongs in the hands of the state. You see what I mean? And so that's all it is. And see, so what happens is you want to make money, because what happens is entrepreneurship allows you to, your job as an entrepreneur is to solve problems. Entrepreneurs solve problems, right? Bigger the problem, the bigger the check. And so money, one of the things that we teach is money follows value. So if you want to make more money, you have to think about, you can't think about, I need to make more money. You have to think about, how can I create value in the marketplace? How can I serve more people? How can I solve more problems for more people? How can I, so if you're a real estate investor, your product is providing safe, clean, affordable housing. But if, let's say, you do creative financing, we've both been in rooms in Clubhouse where we talk about that, is that you have to solve the seller's problem to acquire the property out, strategic thinking and problem solving. And so that's what we've got to learn. That's what we have to teach our kids, and not have them, go to school, get education, get a good job so you can be in more debt and pay more tax. You know what I mean? So that's a loaded question, but I'm going to take a breath here.
No, it's interesting you say that. I tell people all the time, before the Industrial Revolution, 90% of Americans had a business, right? And then once the Industrial Revolution hit, it kind of flipped, because you can literally, do the minimum amount of work and still get paid at the end of the day from 9 to 5. And that's where 9 to 5 came from. It came from people working in the factories, because that's when the factories were open. And now we don't, people don't really even work in factories anymore, but we're still using the same 9 to 5 system after the Industrial Revolution. And it kind of flipped. Now you see 90% of Americans employees and only 10% of Americans that are business owners. And so, my next question to you is, how is your business structured? Like, I know you talked about taxes and things like that. Do you have your business structure like a sole prop, a corporation, LLC? How is yours particular business?
It's an LLC. I was a sole prop for a while before I understood. I had C corps, so they didn't really know how to use them right. But basically now I would say we're an LLC with an S election. And which is, if you're an LLC, people say, "Oh, I set up a business, I got an LLC, and I'm trying to, LLC in of itself doesn't, for example, save you money in taxes. You're basically a sole proprietor, and you still have to pay self-employment tax. So I started to understand that. Why am I still having these big tax bills? And then somebody broke down to me, okay, no, you've got to change how you want the IRS to perceive you and change how you want to be taxed. Okay, and so you want to be taxed. So as once you start making $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and you have a conversation with your accountant and explore that. I'm not going to give tax advice, but that's how we're set up.
Nice. Yeah, and I completely understand, because I'm in the same space. I went to school for economics and accounting, but even because I did not get my CPA, because I wanted to be I want to go the entrepreneur route, but I was a kid, I didn't know that I could. Anyway, so
right.
the
entrepreneur in the CPA space, right?
right. I could have, Anyway, so I was a kid, and same thing, kind of similar story is, playing basketball and things like that. And I remember when I went to school, they, to play basketball, basically, they asked me what's your major, and I said basketball, and they're like, "Oh, that's not a major, man." So I kind of fell into.
I had a double major, basketball and girls, right? So no.
But I know you. So you
With a
mentioned
business
something
minor,
about.
business administration minor. No, yeah.
You mentioned something about yeah, we can't give tax advice, right? Because we're not accountants. Now this kind of segues into another question I have, because a lot of things my clients, the funny thing, just to bring you up to speed a little bit, and to the audience who's out there, I know a lot of you guys are following me because of TikTok. So we had about 7 million views on TikTok, and 10,000 people reached out. And so in the last like 3 or 4 months, I've sat down with maybe, I don't know, 500, maybe 600 people. And
Wow.
yeah, and one thing that I talk to them about is about kind of what you're saying about like how to structure your business properly, how to pay attention to taxes and things like that. And the funny thing, I came to this conclusion, is that most people don't get a lawyer unless they are about to get divorced, and they don't get an accountant unless they, I don't know, maybe they're getting audited or something. I don't know.
Right,
And
right,
so, I emphasize to people that, our founding fathers, they had lawyers. Some of them were lawyers, and they probably had some tax accountants that they work with. And I think a team, if you want to do anything big in this life,
right,
you need a team around you. You need a
right,
lawyer.
right.
Lawyers aren't that expensive, accountants and things like that. So, can you tell me how important would you say it is for people to have those type of things in place, like an accountant, like a lawyer, like
Yeah,
a
yeah. But
financial
listen,
advisor?
business is a team sport. Okay,
Yeah.
so you can't, and see. So the school system teaches you to be an individual, but you can't beat me if I have a team. Because you can't know everything, right? And so I try to stay focused in. This is from Dan Silva, strategic coach. In my unique ability, where am I in
Mm-hmm.
my zone? Where this is what I do. And so what I try to do is, there's a great book called Who Not How. And that's my theme for this year. Cause I'm a how guy. I like to know how stuff works, but you have to have, so I tell people, look, I teach principles based planning. So I'm kind of like with the way we work with clients, I'm the general practice physician. I'm your financial quarterback, right? But I'm going to help you build your team. But we got to be on the same page, because I'm kind of like the anti-Wall Street financial advisor. So I am vetting strategic alliance partners. So if they don't have them, I'm like building a whole core of people. So a good tax person that's not afraid of the IRS, that is not a historian, for example, that will just, you take your tax at the end of the year. You need somebody that's proactive, that you meet with at least once a quarter, okay, to see where you're going. You need your attorney. Part of the attorney thing, or like a legal service plan, I like them too, but you need to practice preventative law, right? You need to get your contracts reviewed before you sign them. So your team, you need it depends on the asset class. You need a mentor or be in coaching. All right. You need a bookkeeper. Okay. Because most wealth is lost by how people manage cash flow. We're rolling out a cash flow management system, because most people think the key to growing their money is investing. All right. Investing is literally the last thing you should be doing. Okay, literally. And so you have to organize, and you build them, because you have to vet them, because as you grow, as your business grows, the people you start with won't be the people you end with. So if I talk to somebody, I
Mm-hmm.
used to say, listen, I'm thinking about a corporation, and this is bad. This is always the first reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. And, you think I should get a C Corp? Oh, you should get a C Corp because you get double taxed. Well, you only get double taxed if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, you can get double taxed, but that's not the reason to
Mm-hmm.
kind of set you up. If you're a real estate investor, you need a banker, right? You need a good mortgage broker. You need a mentor in real estate. You need a good accountant, and you still need me, because I'm the anti-Wall Street financial advisor. So shameless plug, right? Sorry. And but it depends on if you like paper. So the 4 asset classes are business. So when I talk to clients about investing is not about buying something. It's about becoming something, right? So you need to build your team. It's not about, everybody's looking for products. I was on a call earlier today, a guy was like, well, what products you sell? It's not about products. Products are irrelevant initially, okay? And so you need to, so the asset classes are business, real estate, paper assets, and commodities. So when you look at the Forbes 400, how are they rich? It's that. And most time it's business and real estate, and then real estate has its own set of team members,
Mm-hmm.
right? And business has similar, because you could have a real estate business, but you have to vet them. So if you look at Kiyosaki has the Kiyosaki advisors. Gareth Sutton's the attorney. They has his Kenny McElroy, his partner in buying all of the syndications in the apartment buildings they buy. He's got a paper guy. He's got a sales guy. He's got what's the other guy? Tax guy, Tom Wheelwright, Tax Free Wealth, who I know. And so they meet. They have book study together. They are reading the same stuff. They meet like once a month. They travel together. They study books together. They're on the same page. They have the same philosophy. And so they've got to have your philosophy. So I had this woman call one time. I was like, well, I was talked to about, I teach a strategy called infinite banking. So this person found me on Instagram. Was like, well, I was talking to my other advisor, and she's what did she say? She had to watch out for that, But I said, well, what did she do? But she was a typical, what I call paper advisors, mutual funds and that kind of stuff. So she don't know anything about what I'm talking about. And I said, if you're going to work with me, Curtis is the lead dog. Don't get it twisted. I'm the lead advisor, okay? Because we're like oil and water, and I know. This sounds really bad, so I'm not this egotistical that I may be coming out.
No, it's okay, man. To talk your stuff, man. Talk your stuff.
It's we have to be on the same page, right? Because
yeah.
Right.
No.
And I'm the man. Gosh darn it. No, but she don't know what I know. I know everything she knows. And she don't know what I know, and I know what she's teaching you ain't going to work, because there's no amount of money you can put in a 401k and retire. Retirement is a man-made socialist concept, and it does not work. Right. So these are these little myths that keep us stuck, because we have misconceptions and we get half truths. And so you got to have a team that understands that. So, for example, you got an accountant. Most accountants. Like, I was on a meeting where these big time real estate investors, and they're bragging about their solo 401ks, and I'm putting 30 grand a year in this SEP and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, wait, why would you lock your money up in a box and give it to some fund manager you never met, when you're buying apartment buildings and you're making infinite returns on your real estate, and you're putting money at risk maybe to make 8 or 10? And the only thing you're doing is deferring your taxes, and you're deferring the calculation of those taxes, right? So you're not saving money. They think you're saving money in taxes. And so the accountant, if you don't have the right one, is, that's a short-term easy fix. Oh, let's put 30 grand in here so you can save money in tax. You ain't saving money. You're just kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
The money's coming out taxable. See, I need somebody. One time I referred a client to an accountant, and she had her put $50,000 in a solo 401k. I was like, you did what? Okay. Do you not know what I do? Okay. And so if you're not going to, that's a short and a pinch, but you better be able to show her how to get it out tax free. If you're going to be that lazy, then you need to figure out how to get it out on the back end. So now you see why I'm the lead dog, right? You got to.
All the accountants out there, you guys are doing a good job.
Right. You're doing listen, I love accountants. I want to buy accounting firm. Okay. So, so this is the first time we've talked, so you don't know how wild I'm in.
Go for it, man. Talk it, man. Talk it.
So
all good.
So anyway, yeah. So it's important to build a team, but you got to build a team. See, because your goal is to become financially free, right? And I say in a decade or less, which is passive income greater than your expenses. So your team has to be aligned with the same philosophy of how to do that, and minimize current and future taxation.
Nice, beautiful, man. And it's interesting, because I come across a lot of different accountants, and some and to the listeners out there, to the audience, guys, not every accountant's going to know what you're trying to accomplish. Okay. They're just going to do what you tell them to do. And if you ask them certain questions, because a lot of times I teach people certain things on how to save on taxes, not every accountant knows how to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now if you can Now, I would hate for you guys to get into a situation where you're teaching your accountant on what you're trying to do. I would much rather you get with an accountant that already knows what you're trying to do, because it kind of saves you a little bit of time. But just keep in mind, not everyone understands everything. Just because, I talked to a CPA the other day and they said a couple of things that I knew was incorrect, but I just kind of, humored them anyway, because I didn't want to make them feel like they didn't know what they were talking about. But I knew it was incorrect. And so, but some people think that they know what they're talking about. Anyway,
because see, you need to know. Let me finish that up. So you have to see there. You're still the captain. You have to lead your wealth. They're your advisor. 100%. Okay, so you know what I mean. So that's why I tell people your number one investment or your number one asset is you, right? So you have to invest in your mindset, your skill set, and your network. So your mindset. What do you know? What are you learning? Are you reading a book a month on money? 2 books a month, right? A book a month on money, a book a month on leadership, sales, networking, marketing, or your skill set. Because your skill set is what allows you to generate money, right? And then who do you know? But then more importantly, Mr. I saw 500 people, who knows you, right? Which is awesome, by the way. I heard you talk about that. Like, wait, you did what? And but it's that. So you have to. So those are the things. If you're trying to grow as an entrepreneur, that's what you got to work on. Your number one asset is you, and then your number one investment. See, stop sending your money other places to somebody else's business. Okay, you need to invest in your business, right? And what do you invest in? Marketing, sales, systems, and people. That's how you make money, right? And stop hoping some damn fund manager's smart. Because if you put $1 in and you get $2 out, that's 100% return. You can't do that with no mutual fund. You know what I mean? And so you have to trust yourself, and you have to be liquid, right? See, one of the 5 principles I teach, the principle number 4 is liquidity. 6 to 12 months of liquidity, right? Because you need, the number one problem I see, Jay, is lack of, especially with our people, right? Lack of capital, lack of access to capital, but not just access to capital. Oh, we can't get lending, blah, blah. No, they don't have any money, right? And so if you don't have, so people are always taught to invest. No, I teach them you need to capitalize. You need to have liquidity so that, because if you don't have any money, now you have to invest in what the masses invest in, high risk. You want to do $200 a month in a Roth IRA. You ain't gonna make no money doing that, right? You need to. I'd rather have you invest in. I had a client invest in coaching, right? $6,000 in a psychologist, and I said, look, should I get an apartment building? Should I do this? And I said, no. I said, are you in business? She had a side business, and she wanted to leave her job. I says, well, I told her the story of this dental practice where this guy, invested in his business, and he literally doubled his business from $500,000 to $1 million in 12 months. Okay. And he took his cash, he borrowed against his life insurance, and he took that and invested in a 1-year coaching program. So I told her this story about the dentist. So before our first meeting, she goes, Mr. May, I did what you said. I was like, okay, I didn't remember saying anything. I just told her the story. She goes, oh yeah, I looked online and I found this company that helps psychiatrists get therapy clients. So she says, well, and it was a really good program. She sent it to me. I said, yeah, it's good. She says, well, how much is it? It's like, oh, it's $6,000. You think I should do it? I said, well, how much is it? So I never asked a direct question, right? It's always a question with a question.
I got you.
$3,000 over 6 months. That's over a year worth $6,000. So if you got one client, you pay for the thing, and they promise that they will help you do 5 to 6 clients a month. What do you think you should do, right? And so 3 months later, it's working. She's left her job. She is happy. I have her saving 15, 20% of her income. She was making 6 figures, and her income hasn't dropped, and she sees it going up, and she took the lead to invest in her business. She said, well, you're an entrepreneur. See, security is the ability to produce. So most people's income is up and down because they haven't mastered lead generation. And so if you haven't done that, you'll always be on the income roller coaster, right? And so that's...
What'd you call it? You said lead generation?
Lead generation. You get marketing, right? You got to get... So when I look at a business, I break business down into 3 parts: before, during, and after, right? And so your before unit is attracting, capturing, and nurturing the leads that you capture, right? And love on them, educate them, have call to action. So when they're ready to talk to you, boom, you give them a mechanism, a calendar, so they can show up on your calendar. That starts your during or your engagement process. And then after is cultivating them, is orchestrating referrals, it's continuing education, it's cross-selling, it's joint ventures, and bringing the referrals back to your before unit, right? And so you have to, so it's like, we both play basketball, right? So I call it working on your game. So you ever go places where you all right, I'm going to play here. These guys know me here, so I don't have to prove anything. So today I'm just going to go left, right? I'm going to take people off the left. I'm going to finish with my left hand. And what I'll do is, all right, I need to work on, like I interviewed somebody last week on my show, and she did $100 million in mortgages. She was like a mortgage trainer. She's like a now professional development trainer, but she, in 1 year, and she talked about the strategy of, for example, build off it with 22, they were all referrals from 22 strategic alliance partners. I was like, what? The whole rest of the interview is about that. I was like, okay, here's some free consulting for Curtis, right? And and so I had her break that thing because I was doing pieces of that, and she gave me a couple little nuances that I knew everybody that was listening to that, because we have a small business audience also that could benefit from that, where you ain't got to do Facebook ads. It was all, you're being introduced by, endorsed by their accountant or by their, strategic alliance partner. And so the fastest way to grow is, y'all think you need to go online and listen, find somebody that already has the people that you want to work with and figure out how you all can serve each other, how you can serve their people. That is the fastest way to if you're at a standstill and you need to generate revenue, that's the fastest. Because when I work with people, I always tell people I can't steer a parked car. So I was talking to somebody and they didn't really have any revenue coming in. I said, all right, because I want people to save 15% of their gross income. That's the first principle of the 5 principles I teach. But you didn't have any income, so I said, all right, we already got this time booked. So I spent 45 minutes with her talking about this kind of stuff. Lead generate, what are you doing? Tell me about your business, because I can. And I love having that conversation. And if I can help you, I want to help you, because I only know this stuff, one, because I'm a nerd, I read a lot, but people have helped me and spent time with me and sat down and broke it down for me. This is what you do. And so I think that, through our shows, what you're doing and meeting people, I know you do the same thing, is just, really teaching people, because it's tough out here. And we need help. And so what you've got to have a mindset of prosperity or abundance, understanding that there's more than enough for everybody to have more than enough, right? And right. You know what I mean? And so if you operate from scarcity, you see everything as competition. And I don't want to tell them nothing, because they may take my business, but nobody's unique to you. And so your people that resonate with you will do business with you. So anyway, that's my rant.
No, that's beautiful, man. I was telling someone the other day, because we're, technically we're competitors, but I was coaching him on the same thing. I was like, actually, there is no competition technically. Some people might want to buy from me, some people might want to buy from you. It kind of just depends on who they want to buy from. Right. Yeah, good stuff, man. And so, just going back a little bit on how you said that you're a basketball player. How would you say, being a basketball player or playing on a team sport or having those athletic background, how much would you say that plays into what it is that you do now, entrepreneurship and business? Do you see any parallels?
Oh my God, 100. It's the same. You play business, right? And so I've coached travel soccer and basketball, and the main thing I was tell kids when I was coaching, they're like, my daughter's 20 now. I coached her from the time she was 9 till about 14. And I would tell the kids, listen, your daughters are not the second coming of Mia Hamm. Okay. So y'all need to chill. And, but what I wanted them to get is the ability to have the will to prepare to win, right? To do the work, to have good practice, to stay focused, that's what I use in business today, to be competitive. I want to be the best. I want to be the win. I follow, my operating system is a book called The 12-Week Year. And so I work on a 12-week cycle. So my year is 12 weeks, right? And I always, so when I was in high school, I was a stats guy. So the first person I wanted to see after the game was the statistician. How many referral rebounds, how many assists, how many points. And so because business is about keeping score. Money is just how you keep score. And you have key performance indicators. So I looked at that, when I ran track, even I went to a private school, but so we weren't in the PIAA, which is the state thing, but I knew my times in the 100, 200, and I looked at the paper. And so I knew, even though I wasn't running against them, I knew I was in the top 5 time-wise in the state. So I kind of do that right now. I'm 40th in my one of my companies in the company, and so I like that. But just to, because you want something that's fun. So I wanted something that for football players, you want something that gives you that Friday night feeling, right? And so that's why I wanted. That's what drove me to business. Because I wanted to play it. I wanted to, money's how you keep score. I have what I call a growth game. Every month I don't grow in revenue, I got beat. So I got a 12-game season, right? And I got 4 quarters, which is the 4 weeks in a month. And then if I don't grow by certain areas, that's a loss, right? And so I want to have a winning season. So that's kind of how I think about it. But the thing that I think that helped me was the willingness to prepare, to shoot 500 shots a day, to practice your presentation, to always thinking about, how can I work on this? How can I say this simpler? How can I get people to understand? How can I serve more people? How can I be more efficient? So all of that stuff, I always use the analogy, I got to work on my game. So this quarter, I'm working on down to the end of the year, I've decided, all right, what I want to work on is that strategic alliance thing I learned from her. So from now till the end of this quarter, this year, September 30th, I'm going to work on that muscle, right? Which is strategic alliances. So all that stuff, I get it all from basketball. I feel, because I like sports, for example, like swimming or track, even with the team sports, because what I like about swimming and track is they always are trying to PR, right? What's your personal record, right? And so they could come in dead last, but if they PR'd and beat their best time, they're ecstatic. And so I like that concept. All right, what's your personal record? What's your PR? And so because you got to compete, but you shouldn't compare. So I used to always tell my kids in track, and also when you're looking at your peers, I would say, look, you got to run your race, right? Don't worry about what you're doing. If you're running the 400, you have to trust your training. You're going to come out hard. You're going to go through the corners. Your lactic acid is burning on that second straightaway to 100. Then you got to come off the corner and keep your form. And then you just got to trust your training that you're going to finish that last 100 meters strong. That's business in my mind, so that's how it's all sports to me. Okay.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I completely understand, man. That's, it's kind of where a lot of my edge comes from, and just falling in love with the practice, basically.
Yeah.
Falling in love with just building that muscle up. So then you're right. In the fourth quarter, when you're dead dog tired and your body's aching, but all that practice kind of now it's just second nature at that point. You know what to do when things get tough, because adversity is always going to hit. So you want to make sure that you can push through it, right?
Yeah.
So. All right, good stuff, man. So we're rounding out to the end here. It's been an absolute amazing time talking with you and learning some things. I learned a couple of things. Hopefully, some of you guys have gotten some aha moments. I know I've been saying aha in the back of my mind pretty much this whole time. So last couple of things here, man. Anything you want to talk, anything you want to say to the audience? Last few things here as we kind of wrap up here.
Yeah, one of the things that I try to focus people on is when I go back to when I say investing is not about buying something, it's about becoming something. So the main thing that we teach people are the principles that help people become and remain financially free. So I'm just going to rattle them off, but this is the stuff that we talk about, and which is the principle of saving 50% of your income. We talk about protecting. You got to play defense, maximum protection. I want people to have, to leave a legacy of wealth and wisdom. So that's forward placement of assets at death. Okay. I want people to have liquidity, principle 4. And principle 5 is velocity of money. So that's an economic principle. See, most people are trained by the institutions to save and accumulate, but that's not how they make money, right? And so a good book for that is Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. All of them really, but the first four, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing and Who Took My Money, really goes into a deep dive of the concept of velocity. Now, you can create velocity in different asset classes. That's your job. I don't tell people what to invest in. I want to make sure that they understand how money works, they're liquid, and they have what I call the 3 E's: education, experience, and excessive cash. So that's what we work to create with people. Now, you notice I didn't mention any products, because products at this point are irrelevant. So principles drive strategy. One of the strategies we teach is something called becoming your own banker, but that's a strategy. That's step 2. Okay. And then strategy drives tactics. Okay. And tactics are products that you buy, but the products, the way we teach, are literally last, because, you got to figure out what you want and why. So you have to start with why. So it's why, then how, then what. Most people lead at you and come at you with a what, a product you buy, but they need to, if they don't do that, you need to, or you're entrepreneurs, you got to lead with the why. Then your system is how you're going to help them get where they want to go, and then your product is the what. And so if I can leave you with that, that's kind of how that's how I approach it in our financial practice, but you can apply that in whatever business that you're in. Principles drive strategy, strategy drives tactics. And so you got to have principles gives you a foundation for decision making. So you're not experiencing stuff for the first time. All successful people have principles, and success leaves clues. So you've got to study. What we do is I study money. I study the Buffetts. I study people that are successful. I read autobiographies, or we have a newsletter called the Cashflow, and every month we are doing case studies of successful people in real estate, in business, and different things, looking at the lessons, the clues, and what can you adopt in your life. And then you just, as you work on your game, all right, well, boom, okay, look, let me apply this. This month I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on my left. I'm going to do this. I'm going to work on pulling up at the top the key off the fast break. You have to work on stuff. And so that's how you play business or play in your life. Even if you're working full time, Jim Rohn says wages make you a living, profits make you a fortune, right? And so profits are better than wages, but you work on your living during the day and you work on profits at night and on the weekends. So that's what we teach people, because if you're going to become financially free, you have to learn how to make money. You have to learn how to literally create money.
Nice. Awesome, man. Well, beautiful, man. I'm so happy that we got a chance to have this time together, man. And to everybody out there, make sure you guys follow Curtis May 4766 on Instagram. You can click on his link tree to get to his link tree and get to all of his websites. You can take a look at, he has a couple of things. He has a podcast, TV. He has his LinkedIn here, and you can also schedule a session with him if you feel so inclined. Also, you go ahead and follow us at awesomeintangibles.com.